Welcome. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for the introduction, Dominica. It was a pleasure to be with each and every one of you this morning. I am going to be talking about our funding programs in all of our job centers. It's the Career Support and Training Services Unit. And I am going to try to make this as interactive as possible. So that we all stay awake. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. And if you're like me, you probably haven't drank your full cup of coffee yet. So what is it that we do? We administer state and federal grants through the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. That is where our federal funding comes from. We have 2 main federal grants that we administer. Called the Dislocated Worker Program and the Adult Program. And every year we also have special grants that we receive to go along with that. We have some apprenticeship grants. We also this year have some general funds from the state, which is not a norm for us. And then we also have the State Training and Employment Program. That is state funding that we get every year through unemployment insurance. And so those 3 programs are our main grant funded programs that we administer. So we almost always have funding in those 3 funding streams. Our goal is to develop the workforce. Our mission is to help individuals get into high growth, high demand occupations. Can you guys in the chat give me some examples of some high growth occupations right now? CNA, yes. HVAC is one, absolutely. Anyone else? Truck drivers, yes. We have been funding a ton of truck drivers. With all of the infrastructure funding coming in, there has been a mass increase in the need for truck drivers. Electricians, diesel mechanics, absolutely, welders, IT, thank you, Darla. Pilots and mechanics. Pilots is another one. We're at an all-time high right now in funding pilots, absolutely. Ferry workers, yes, ma'am, thank you, Karen. Maritime, absolutely. All right, you guys can keep putting those in the chat. I'm going to move on. The goal, I'm going a bit too fast on my slide. The goal is to help individuals find and keep permanent full-time employment at a self-sustaining wage. When people hear that we have training services, one of the first thoughts is that we provide the training. We are not a training provider. We are a funding source. But funding training is not the ultimate goal. Just paying for someone to go to school is a means to helping that individual obtain employment at a self-sustaining wage. So even though we have funding for training, training is not the end goal. Employment is always the end goal. There are times when we have customers come in that are interested in changing careers. One of the things that we may have to assess is whether that career change is a necessity or if it's by choice. When we assess individuals for funding, one of the things that we do is we determine whether they have the skills and education or training already to get a job in the current labor market. And if they do, then we may not be able to justify paying for them to go to training to get another credential. And so we may talk to them about helping them to find a job with the skills that they have, as long as there's a labor market for it. Now, if there's not the labor market for it, then we may be able to justify that career change. For example, if somebody has been a truck driver for 15 years and then they injure their back and they are no longer physically able to continue doing that job, even though historically that has been their occupation and that is what they're trained to do, because of the change in their lifestyle. Changing careers is a necessity for them. So our case managers work with each individual that comes to the job center seeking assistance with training funds. They first determine their eligibility and suitability. Eligibility is so each grant has eligibility criteria. The suitability may be whether that individual has skills or whether that individual is at a point in their life where they can successfully get through a short-term or a long-term training. And so our case managers do upfront assessments with each individual to determine that eligibility and suitability. We're also here to help address barriers to employment. Can you guys tell me in the chat what you would consider some barriers to employment? What are some barriers to employment? Childcare, absolutely. Homelessness, yes. Housing, transportation. Yep. Transportation is a big one, absolutely. Any others? Work history, yes, ma'am. Hi, Katie. No GED or diploma. Oh, Lisa, hi. These are some of my co-workers, you guys. I'm excited to see them on. Legal issues, absolutely. Barrier crimes, yes, ma'am. Confidence, that's a good one. Yes, absolutely. Lack of confidence can definitely be a barrier to employment. If you lack confidence and you go in for an interview and you bomb the interview, then you're most likely not going to get the job. Absolutely. That's a great one, Catherine. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to move on. You guys are great. And so in order to help some of our customers overcome barriers to employment, we may refer them to other agencies and partner with other agencies to work together to overcome some barriers to employment. I'm gonna call on some of my staff to put in the chat what some of those agencies are that we partner with that may be able to help one of our customers overcome barriers to employment. Yes, ma'am. Hi, Nancy. DVR, yes. Anyone else? Department of Labor Employees, 9-star, yes, ma'am. So DVR, for those of you that may not know, but I think most people on this call do know, but that stands for Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, and they provide services to individuals with disabilities. So they do employment and training services specifically for those that have a disability. 9-star Independent Tribal Support, yes, ma'am, yes. We partner with all of our Native corporations statewide. Anyone else? Those were great ones, thank you. We also partner with all of our Second Chance grant recipients throughout the state. So like in Anchorage, that would be Partners for Progress, Partner Reentry Center. So if we do have anyone that has a justice involved, we partner with Partner Reentry Center to help those individuals as well. Our case managers also assist with resume writing, cover letter writing, application preparation, job search, and interviewing preparation. Because like I said, even though we assist with training services, the end goal is not training, the end goal is employment. So once the training is complete and that individual is ready to start looking for a job, then our case managers assist with job search. They provide direct job search assistance. And then mock interviews. I did it again, you guys. I am just trigger happy with these slides today. We also do mock interviews, which is actually one of my favorite services that we provide in all of our job centers. Mock interviews I've seen it help so many people that have just did not have good interviewing skills. Our staff take it very seriously, and so they find out what position or positions the customer may be applying for. They come up with interviewing questions that will most likely be asked. So they ask industry-specific questions. We ask the individual to come dressed for an interview so that we can also provide some feedback on what they're wearing. We make sure that it's a panel interview, so we have at least 2 of our staff doing the mock interview to give that individual an opportunity to practice doing a panel interview. They do all of the greetings, formal greetings, just like a regular interview. And then at the end of the interview, they give that individual wonderful, wonderful feedback. What are they doing well? And what are the things that they can improve on? Mock interviews do not have to be a one and done. Customer can come back in and do that mock interview as many times as they need to until they have it improved. A great way, it is a great way of improving interviewing skills. Highly recommend it. Our case managers also assess the need for training or supportive services. We talked about training services, our support services. Anyone that we have in a plan status and either we're providing job search assistance to, or we're supporting them to get through a training program. We can provide some support services for housing, transportation, tools, various, there's a long list of support services that we can provide. And so what I always say is we treat everyone as an individual and we create a plan with them based on their needs and their situation. The case manager, so once eligibility has been determined and that individual has been deemed eligible for one of our grant funded programs, then the case manager will go through the enrollment process with them, and then they will write their individual employment plan. That is a written agreement between our staff, the representative that is representing the Department of Labor, and the customer on how we're going to support them in achieving their employment goals. So I'm going to go through some program guidelines and expectations for WIOA and STEP. So for any of our grant funded programs, basic criteria is an individual must be 18 years of age or older. All veterans receive priority of service. We do financial assessments with everyone. Funding is determined on a case-by-case basis, so not every plan looks the same. All of our plans are individualized, and individual needs will be determined. For our federal programs, the eligibility criteria is that you must be eligible to work in the United States. Males must have registered for selective service if required to do so. And I'm saying eligibility criteria, but this is just a portion of the eligibility. This is not the eligibility criteria for specifically for those grant funded programs. But these are just some of the basic things that we are required to determine before we can move forward with funding an individual. And the training program that they choose must be on the eligible training provider list. I will provide these slides to Dominica so that you have this to refer back to, and you'll have this link to get to the eligible training provider list. For our state-funded program, you must have been an Alaska resident for at least 30 days. Thank you, Dominica, appreciate that. You must have paid into unemployment insurance within the last 5 years. The training program must have a status with the Alaska Commission on Post-Secondary Education. And here are some of our expectations. The training must result in a certification, license, diploma, or degree. We are required to capture a credential. Any training that we fund must end with a credential. We are required to report that to the feds and to the state. The course of study must be vocationally or occupationally connected. So we couldn't pay for someone to just go to UAA for general studies. It has to be connected to a vocation or occupation. The training must be completed for our federally funded programs. The training must be completed within 104 weeks. That's approximately 2 years. And in 52 weeks, a year for our state funded program. We do require our customers to apply for other sources of funding, Pell Grant scholarships. If they have worked and have been laid off from a job, we will require them to apply for unemployment insurance also, if they have not done so already. We do expect our customers to follow the goals that are outlined in their employment plan, because they're their goals. We don't choose them for them. They come to us and they tell us what they want to do, and we determine whether it's something that we can support or not. And so our relationship with our customers is long-term. We follow them from the start of their training to the end of their training and until they actually get a job. And so we meet with them as regularly as we possibly can. We also require that they maintain monthly contact with their case managers. We use a virtual assistant called Sarah, S-A-R-A, that helps with that. So once a customer has been enrolled in Alaska Jobs, we also enroll them in Sarah. And Sarah will send them either a text message or an email every month asking them to answer some questions as a check-in. And then those responses go to their case manager, and then their case manager can case note those responses. That went a lot faster than I thought it was going to go. Are there any questions, though? Any questions? You can see the end goal once again. It's full-time permanent employment in a high-growth, high-demand occupation. And here's all of our contact information for a direct referral to CSTS here in Anchorage. You can have your customers email that email address or call that line at 269-0088. You can also call the regional manager for the Anchorage-Matsu region, and he would be happy to answer all questions or concerns. His name is Lawrence Gaines. If you do not live in the Anchorage area and you would like to get connected to your local job center, please feel free to give me a call and I will be happy to connect you. I see. Is there a list of approved training programs? Yes, ma'am. That is the eligible training provider list. And I think Dominica shared the link in the chat. Yes, if you go up a few more notches up, she shared the link for the eligible training providers list for our federally funded programs. Yes, ma'am. Glad you found it. You're very welcome. Any other questions?
Demetria, Dominica, you mentioned that while working with individuals to approve for training funding or funding for training, you also require scholarship searches and looking for other funding. Do you require FAFSA completion?
Yes, ma'am.
You do.
But that's only for the trainings that are eligible for FAFSA or Pell Grant or any other grants grants or scholarships that one would get if you fill out a FAFSA. There are some trainings in town where we would not require them to fill out a FAFSA because even if they were awarded any of that funding, they would not be able to use it.
Right. So for instance, NIT, Northern Industrial Training, that school wouldn't, is not a Title IV school, doesn't participate in the federal funding. I understand. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So we don't require any of those participants to fill out a FAFSA if they're going to NIT. So it's all situational. That's why we try to get our customers to come and see us as quickly as possible. So if you have anyone that you're working with that you would like to refer to us, please encourage them to not wait until a week or two before their training starts. Even if it's 6 months out, it's not too early. Have them go ahead and either go to a job center or call a job center and speak to a case manager so that we can help set them up for success. And we also refer a lot of people to ACPE. Those customers that are looking for scholarships and need help with their FAFSA, we do refer them to ACPE. ACPE is another one of our partners. Did you like that plug, Dominica?
Yes.
Any other questions? You guys have been a great audience. All right, I see no other questions coming in the chat. I will turn it back over to Dominica. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Dimitri. It's always such a pleasure to have you with us. So thank you for your time this morning.
You're very welcome.
I will mention once again, and I know Dimitri is registered, so we'll see you in October, at the end of October, for our first Alaska FAFSA Summit.
Yes, I will be there.
So whoever is interested and hasn't registered yet, I will share the link to the registration form once again. We want to make sure that we have all the partners in the same room to work on the FAFSA completion numbers here in Alaska, because as we all know, they are not the greatest. So there's room for improvement, certainly. All right, well, as Dimitra mentioned, we get customers from the job center network, and we also refer individuals to here at ACPE to the Division of Employment and Training Services. I know, and could you speak to that, Dimitra? You also have apprenticeship unit within your division, correct?
Yes, we do. So here in Anchorage, we have really the only standalone apprenticeship unit out of all of the job centers. We've got 3 staff that are dedicated specifically to apprenticeship. And so not only do they help fund apprenticeships for their training, they also go out into the community and they work with employers on becoming sponsors. And so they're marketing apprenticeship, they're talking to employers and educating employers on what apprenticeship is, with the hope of getting them to decide to become a sponsor. And then in our smaller offices, the business connection representative, the individual that works directly with employers, is also trained to do apprenticeships. And so as they're out in the community and they're talking to employers about our business connection services, they're also introducing apprenticeship to those employers that may benefit from becoming a sponsor. And so we partner with the U.S. Department of Labor. Once we have an employer that has made the decision that they would like to use registered apprenticeship as as a training model for one of their occupations, we work with the U.S. Department of Labor to help that employer become an apprenticeship sponsor. And then the business connection person or our apprenticeship unit staff will also help pay for the related training instruction for the apprentice. And so most of us are very, very familiar with apprenticeship in the trade, but there are multiple other occupations that are apprenticeable outside of the trade as well. So there's apprenticeships in medical, apprenticeships in IT, apprenticeships in administrative jobs. And so apprenticeship is growing nationwide. We also partner with the Alaska Workforce Investment Board, the AWIB. They apply for apprenticeship grants, and they sub-grant some of those grants to the job centers, and then we administer some of those apprenticeship grants on behalf of the AWIB. And then the AWIB will also sub-grant some of the apprenticeship funds that they get to different organizations that are apprenticeship sponsors. And so, yeah, yes. If you want more information about apprenticeship, please let me know. We have a wonderful new apprenticeship unit supervisor. I think you guys heard from him last week, Delarente Evans.
Yes.
He is fantastic, and I can always get him to present to your organization directly about apprenticeship if you would like to hear more.
Wonderful, thank you. So
You're very
please
welcome.
let us know if you are interested in that. I have a question because there may be a little bit of confusion about WIOA program. There's a separate WIOA for youth, yes, and then there's WIOA for funding for the rest of
For adults and
okay.
workers. Yeah, so there are three. There are three funding programs under WIOA. The adult program, the dislocated work program, and the youth program, dislocated worker program, and the youth program. We don't get youth grants in the job centers. And so the youth grant is granted out to other youth organizations throughout the community statewide. If you go to, let me see, I can find it. I will see if I can find the list of grantees. Let me see. I'll see if I can find the list of grantees and put it in the chat. And if I can't find it, then find it immediately now. I'll email it to Dominica so that she can share it with you. But like in Anchorage, I know that 9 Star is a youth grantee. The Division of Juvenile Justice is a youth grantee. And there are more. There are definitely more. I just cannot think of them because Dominica done put me on the spot, y'all. But I just can't.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Okay. I just can't think of them right now at the top of my head.
And within these
ACPE also has a youth grant. And so it is a grant that organizations have to apply for every year. So it doesn't carry over from fiscal year to fiscal year. Each year, any previous organizations that has had a youth grant, they have to apply again every year. Any new organizations can apply. And so the AWIB opens RFPs usually in February, either in February or March. And so if any of you are interested in applying for a youth grant, you can do so. Actually, I mean, it's coming up here pretty quickly. Actually, I mean, I swear, you guys, it feels like 2023 just started and it's already almost over. February will be here by before you know it. And so reach out to our board. Jeffrey Steepro, I can put his contact information here in the chat, would be a good point of contact with the AWIB if you are interested in applying for a grant, any of their grants.
Thank you for that. You also mentioned dislocated worker. Could you tell us what a dislocated worker is?
A dislocated worker is someone who has lost a job at no fault of their own, either through downsizing in a workforce, through a company closing, business closure. It could be because their job has been outsourced, and so that the work is no longer being done here in our country. And so a dislocated worker can also be an individual who lost a large source of funding in their household due to a divorce, a death, if someone's spouse has died, if someone's spouse, if that person has been a homemaker, either working part-time or not at all, and they've been dependent on a significant other's income for the main source of income in the household, and that primary earner has lost their job, then that homemaker, the person that has been mainly taking care of the household, would be considered a displaced homemaker, and in turn is also a dislocated worker. And so those are the main definitions of dislocated worker.
And there would be funding through WIOA for
Yes,
those individuals to go to training or go back to workforce. Okay. Is that something that the Job Center Network oversees? That particular grant? Yes.
Worker is one of our grant funded programs that we administer in the Job Center. Not every job center has a case manager. I can provide a spreadsheet to Dominica that will let you know where our hubs are in the job center, the closest job center in your community that provides grant funds. I'll send that to you, Dominica, and can share it with the group.
Thank you. And so even if in a particular job center, there's no caseworker, there is still way to connect with a caseworker.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. All of our job center managers statewide know how to refer customers to the closest job center that provides those funds. And so they will work with the customers in their community and gather documents to refer them to, if they're in Valdez, then they will refer them to the Kenai Job Center, and the Kenai Job Center staff will then take on that customer and provide training services to them and work with them to determine eligibility. So there's no wrong door. Go to any job center, and whether there's staff on site at that job center to administer the funds or not, that customer will be served.
Wonderful, thank you. And one last question. So you operate on a fiscal year basis, right? Okay, so but we always hear is submit the application or apply as quickly as possible. But there's funding throughout the year, or is there a cutoff for?
Yeah, no, there's funding all throughout the year. I mean, it doesn't happen very often, and we try to make sure it doesn't happen, but it is not impossible for us to run out of funds.
Right.
But it's been a while. It's been a while since that's happened. We usually try to watch our funding streams pretty closely. But yes, even though we work through the state fiscal year, but our federal funds are operated on the federal fiscal year, which is October 1st through September 30th. But regardless, we always have funds available and we are administering funds all throughout the year. Our customers don't have to worry about the fiscal year. That's our concern, not theirs.
Great. All right, well, we have Jeffrey's phone number. I can later also share with your permission, Demetria, and you did share your contact information in the slides. And if we have no other questions, thank you so much. I appreciate your time this morning, Demetria, and inviting us to be more interactive since it's morning. So I appreciate your time again. Demetria has been with us since the beginning of the ACAC training. So
I have.
So I thank you for your time and sharing your expertise. And yes, please connect with the job centers. There's funding available for training.
Absolutely, and we try to make it as seamless as possible.
We appreciate that. Well, thank you so much, Demetria.
Wonderful being with you guys. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thank you, you too. Bye-bye.